Upload season 3 is over, but we are just getting started here on post show recaps talking about it. That's right, it's full spoiler recaps where we are binging a new season of a show every week and chatting about it in full spoilery detail in just one podcast. I'm Jess Sterling, and today we are discussing Upload season 3. I'm joined here by my co host and clone, Grace Leeder. How are you from 6 months ago without my memories?
Yeah, all the time you were away on vacation, I erased that from my memory. So you were just right from where
That's kind of devastating
yeah.
because I spent a lot of money on that
Mhm.
vacation to
Well,
form memories.
well, in my mind, it's not. I think that this means that I think you're about to go on vacation. So this will only be super confusing. Yeah. Uh-huh.
We're also joined by special guest AI bellhop Mike Bloom. Mike, how are you?
My hair is red-ish, so I suppose ish I could be the AI guy. I'm good sitting here in my assless waders, ready to be referred to by my nickname Goodhead, and I'm here for a good time.
I think you mean Deep Throat. I think you mean you mean Project Deep Throat. I think you mean.
Mm-hmm. In case you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Pusherrecaps.com/full spoiler recaps is where you can find us. Of course, if you want to check out everything that Pusher Recaps has going on, go to pusherrecaps.com/subscribe to see all the shows that we're covering because it's a lot and there's a big old list there. So yeah, we covered Upload season 2. Mike Bloom and I did last year. Last year? Was it over a year
I
ago?
believe it was 2022 that it came out.
I think it was too. So go listen to that if you haven't already. I think we also chatted like kind of generally about season 1 as well.
Yeah.
But now we're back for season 3 and we're covering it binge style. So me, Grace, and Mike are here today to break it all down. It was like basically this came out in batches of 2. So every
it's very funny that
new episodes.
The season where they were like, we're not binging it. We're like, we shall do it in one podcast.
Yeah,
to be fair though, I ended up consuming it in that way. I binged all 8 over the past couple days, and I think the way the story was told, like it actually worked very nicely being piecemeal. Things very much freely flowed from one into another. But yeah, I mean, where we left things, Jess, with Upload season 2 was really interesting because we weren't sure from either a critical perspective or a commercial perspective if the show was successful enough to get renewed for a third season. I believe when the news actually came out, I think sometime last fall, like you and I were both fairly surprised by it. Of course, then it got put on. I think it did get in the can prior to the strikes, but obviously, ended up getting rolled out towards the end of October here. And I would imagine, given the way things were structured in season 3, that they are jockeying for and hoping for a fourth, and I'm assuming final season.
Yeah, from what I've seen, they're pushing hard for a fourth season. I mean, we talked about this last time. I have to imagine that this would be a final season, a fourth and final season. Although we thought that about season 3, back at the end of season 2. So who really knows? But Greg Daniels especially is saying he feels really good about the potential of them getting a fourth season. He mentioned that they're the number 1 most viewed half-hour show on Prime Video.
What's the Venn diagram on that?
I don't know. But he felt really good about it. And he says in a week or 2, they're going to start writing for season 4. So, and like you said, Mike, with the way season 2 ended and with the way season 3 ended, like they're really like leaving us hanging if we don't get a season 4. But presumably, Grace, that would be our final season of Upload, I have to imagine.
Yeah, I think that tracks. I mean, it's Greg Daniels. I think he does have a little bit of a history of like, we'll just ride this thing until the wheels come off. I mean,
when James Spader come in as Nathan for season 4.
No.
Yeah. The Office. I mean, Parks and Rec was always kind of like, we're pretty sure it's going to get canceled, and it never did, and finally got to have like an actual send off. So maybe he also did Space Force, right? Recently, he did that as well. I think.
Was that him or was that?
That was him.
That was him.
He created it. Yeah, with Steve Carell for Netflix. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like if they just keep renewing him, I feel like he probably does it. I think so, but I could definitely see the next season being the last one. I did not watch season 2 as it aired. It was certainly like a show. I really did enjoy season 1. I thought the premise was quite fun. I thought it was funny enough, but not quite enough to pull me back in. And then obviously when we knew we were going to do season 3, I basically watched like seasons 2 and 3, although I did have a bit of a break between 2 and 3 as I watched. I quite liked both of them, and especially in terms of like as a binge show, I did quite enjoy it. I feel like I tend to watch a lot of like hour-long dramas, and so I feel like more and more, just like I think like when we watched Wolf Like Me, and it's like, wow, this is a delight. It was like a half an hour comedy. I felt like kind of the same way of like this felt like so easy for my brain to consume, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree. I know Mike and I were struggling a bit when we covered season 2, saying, gosh, we feel like we just want to watch the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
this time it was easier because I could just watch the next episode.
Yeah,
Well,
and I think it's also interesting because, Grace, we're kind of looking at a dying breed here as well. This idea of the half-hour show is almost usually reserved for network comedies and animation. And so I feel like the less that those are being produced and the more that it has been kind of thrown into, to your point, highfalutin dramas or almost like dramedies, the more they're sort of, especially from a streaming format, waiting towards the hour long. So yeah, it was nice to have these go in a quick clip. That being said, what I find so interesting about Upload is that I wouldn't say it's becoming less and less of a comedy, but the structure and genre of the show, I think, has changed so much. Especially, I would imagine, Grace, since you watched 2 and 3 back to back, like you kind of got to see it in stages of how the show at this point has kind of become sometimes the quirky Good Place knockoff that we were talking about in the first season. And then sometimes it's like odd thriller action mystery box show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like this is one of those things that sometimes happens, and typically not so much with like half-hour comedies. Half-hour comedies, I think, fall into this trap of like the characters almost become more 2D. Like this is very much like a Friends thing. This is like even The Office is where like they become like that's the caricature, and then they play off that caricature. Whereas this show, I feel like it's following the through line much more of something like akin. This is not a Westworld, but it akin to like where it was like, okay, it's about the season was about the park. Season as the show is like expanded, and as he's like they want to try this like what if he downloads, we're like the whole world, we're like literally doing like American politics election stuff in a way that I think like it's really interesting to track the through line of how the show has progressed, and that it's not so much interest. I don't know if it's not interested in being a half-hour comedy, because I think definitely stuff like the AI guy and Luke in here is definitely like a super comedic relief, but it's also, I think, you know, in a time where it's like, I think harder to not make political points. The show is like super political. It's just like some of the stuff it's talking about. And I just think it's like feeling like it's sort of, I don't know, not that it has to talk about this stuff, but that's where it like is wanting to go. So I think it's a pretty interesting evolution of the show over the course of 3 seasons.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like now it just feels we've had the will they won't they of Nathan and Nora, right, for 2 seasons, and of course now that he's downloaded, they're actually able to like physically be together where they weren't able to before. But it really felt more dramatized for that storyline because there's always the question of, is his head going to just explode out of nowhere? And then we get, of course, we have a clone Nathan. So we have clone Nathan and his storyline with Ingrid, and that's obviously played more for comedy. Anything with Ingrid this season really felt more comedic.
Oh yeah,
obviously AI guy, always very comedic. Everything with Alicia and Luke, always very comedic. So it was really interesting to have, you know, season 1 was basically all Lakeview all the time. And now that we've left that piece to where that's only 50% of the storyline, it really feels like we've left the comedy half behind to go more drama between Nora and Nathan. I will say, without kind of going too far into detail before our quick plot recap, I did enjoy season 3 more than I enjoyed season 2. I did consume it differently, though. I mean, I think generally not having the Ludd storyline kind of anchoring us and dragging us down as it did last season, I thought the storyline was a little bit more compelling this season than it was last season, but I also watched it within 48 hours. So I was able to binge it in a way that I wasn't able to last time. Anytime they left things on a little bit of a cliffhanger, right? We have like the, oh my gosh, did Nora just die cliffhanger? No, hit play on the next. I'm not waiting. I don't need to, I don't need to kill myself here. I can hit play.
Yeah, I agree that I think it's tough because I haven't watched season 2 admittedly since we watched it last year, but this felt more cohesive, I would say, as a narrative. Something that's also really interesting about the show is that it has built out more to be an ensemble show than initially. Initially, it very much seemed like Nathan, Nora, and the rest.
Which is pretty funny when there's 2 Nathans this season.
Exactly. So they did double up on one character, but even so, I think Alicia gets like a big step up in terms of storylines in this season. Luke himself also gets like a lot of stuff by himself, though he might have to pass like a Nathan specific Bechdel test of, is there ever a scene where he's not talking about Nathan? Even someone like Ivan, who technically is in the main cast, does have some stuff to do on his own. And that's a cool thing. Ensemble storytelling is my favorite part of storytelling in general. And so, yeah, I do think looking at it right now, I did enjoy 3 more than 2. I wouldn't say it was like explicitly funnier than 2 was, but I do think from a storytelling perspective, with perhaps one exception that we'll get into, I thought it had a direction that it was going in. Did some fun stuff, to your point, Grace, with filling in more about the real world instead of Lakeview, now that we've sort of like not become rote with Lakeview, but now that seems like we've explored every pixel and really trying to bleed those worlds together.
Yeah. Shall I do a plot recap, Jess?
Yes,
shall I
please.
do my best? All right. So season 3 is going to start with Nathan having been downloaded and he's beginning his life with Nora. Although things get complicated as he starts experiencing nosebleeds and believes that, yes, as Jess said, at any moment his head could explode. Nora starts to sort of like work at Horizon and at Lakeview to make some money. Nathan also starts to grab some jobs, and all at the same time, they're also still continuing to investigate what is happening with Horizon. They end up figuring out basically that it is election based, and the idea is making uploads be able to work is the key to this devious plot. They ultimately end up being delivered Choke's hard drive, in which they find some memories on it and believe they'll be able to use it. And Nathan's ex-girlfriend Holden starts a class action lawsuit to try and fix what happened. And basically the Freon experiment, where a bunch of people were told that they could go and sign up for Freon only to immediately have their head exploded and then their hard drives taken. Nora and Nathan try to return the hard drives and begin this class action lawsuit. At the same time, backup Nathan is restored by Tinsley in the thing, and Ingrid tries to basically continue a relationship with Nathan. We end up getting a moment where Nathan end up sort of meeting as they discover that they exist. And there's lots of jealousy between basically what becomes a love square. I was trying to think of a word that had 4 sides. It's a love square.
Is it a square if 2 of the sides are identical?
I mean, isn't that like a definition of a square? All same sides, all same angles.
Actually,
yeah, that's right.
If there were 4 Nathans, then it'd really be a square.
Math.
Yeah. So between Nathan, backup Nathan, Nora, and Ingrid, ultimately it sort of ends up resolving itself as they all sort of like go back with who they were with. And yes, Luke and Alicia start having a bit of a connection as Alicia gets promoted and also develops a relationship with Karina, although she then becomes skeptical about Karina's business ethics and ultimately discovers that she too is involved in this cover up and plan. So basically the season ends as they get the emails from Karina that Alicia, AI guy, Tinsley, and Luke all managed to like distract Karina to steal her emails. They send it in, and they need to do this because the Choke hard drive is inadmissible because Horizon owns basically any testimony from Nathan as well as Choke's memories. But the Karina emails break the case free. But by the end of it, the emails are going to be sealed and they're not going to be released because Holden actually only cared about winning the class action lawsuit, not about taking down Horizon. Nathan is ultimately arrested, and our cliffhanger for the season is that one of the Nathans has been deleted. I'm sure there's lots that I missed that we'll talk through as we chat through the season, Jess. But that's basically what happened on Upload Season 3.
Yeah, again, we're left on another cliffhanger of which Nathan has survived. Is it the downloaded Nathan who is planning on meeting Nora in Montreal to where they can get a marriage license, as they can't get one elsewhere because of intellectual property problems? Or is it the Cologne Nathan that has 6-month-old memories and is now engaged to Ingrid?
Yeah.
We don't know. I mean, I guess it's a fun little way to, we're gonna wait and see what happens with the season 4. But ultimately, I don't know. The thing that kept not losing me, but complicating things for me this season, Mike, was having two Nathans and believing that like one of them, because we have strayed so far from original Nathan in season 1, where this Nathan's brain is, I had such a hard time remembering that he could ever have had feelings for Ingrid.
Well, it's not that, like, it's not completely season 1 Nathan, though, because it reset the day before Family Day, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Grace, is like, what, halfway through season 2? Maybe?
He's not that old, Nathan, which is like, he definitely, I mean, and we see eventually, we do see that he starts to have feelings for Nora and is like, oh, it's like, I'm kind of jealous.
Because we'll also remember that the spot where they left things was where, like, he still had feelings for Nora. So I think it only makes sense. But it's odd, to your point, Jess, like, it may have been a bit more of a distinguishing characteristic and maybe more funny if it was like super douchebag Nathan that got uploaded in the first place versus like the Nathan 2.0 that we're seeing. As a result, especially when they're together, though, I think that was one of my favorite parts of the show, just to see like Robbie ML playing off of Robbie ML. They are a bit samey, and I guess that's the point, because especially once they start like getting involved with each other's partners, and the fact that the big ending is like, okay, which one of them is actually, quote unquote, the surviving Nathan at this point? Maybe that's the conclusion that they were building towards.
Yeah, I agree. I think probably the interesting thing, I think if you're a comedy, it's more fun to reboot him to douchebag like Nathan from the beginning of season 1.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking about this, about how you're going to finish your show, I think that there's the potential that this is why they went with like 6 months ago, Nathan. I think there is something interesting about this sort of thing that they're trying to say about like love, that it's not like backup Nathan and Nora are even maybe meant to be, because you would kind of think that like if that's the thesis of the show, that like there'd be no reason why he like would not just like fall for Nora again and try to like be with her. And this interesting idea, I think, for Nora of like, and I think Holden says this, of like, you're not cheating, that's like just the same guy just from 6 months ago. But this idea of like, who are you actually in love with? I think that there were some interesting things to play around with, but I maybe want to explore that much more in like, you know, a serious drama than like this half-hour comedy show.
That's what I was thinking. There's a lot of themes in this show, obviously with the intellectual property and like who owns what kind of thing, right? That would be explored way more in a hardcore like 60-minute sci-fi show. This isn't that show, but I think there is something to clone Nathan, 6 months old Nathan, can fall for Ingrid now, because Ingrid has also changed. She isn't the Ingrid from season 1. There are parts of her that are still that Ingrid, but this is Ingrid who has been cut off from her family. She has a job in retail, you know, like she goes out with one of her friends. We're going to have to talk about that very, very strange VR exercise situation that's happening.
Horsey butt.
But she goes out with her and she's like, listen, it doesn't matter. You're always going to go back to Nathan. It's always been about Nathan. And like, that can be seen as like, you know, that cuts both ways in terms of like a toxic relationship, but also she really does love Nathan. And of course, there's a part of Nathan that also loves Ingrid. It was just very jarring to watch the same quote unquote character fall in love with two different people, when he is a very like monogamous character overall. So that was very interesting. But that was just one aspect of this very, go ahead.
Well, I thought that Ingrid kind of surprised me. I thought that in terms of like, I was thinking about when you said that like season 3 is not maybe as funny or funnier than season 2. And I was trying to think again, like, where's all the comedy in season 2? So much of it is Ingrid in the suit. Like so much of the comedy is like Ingrid in the suit. I like, you know, I know that she's supposed to be like a hateable character, but I also think it's hard. I think that like Nathan and Nora have such good chemistry that it then becomes hard for me to think like, so when we go back to Nathan and Ingrid, I'm the same as you, Jess. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. I thought Ingrid's character development over the season is so good. The scene where she says no to being proposed to, and it's partially because it's not how she had ever imagined it, but she reveals to Nora later that it is because she's been so like abused by her parents. She literally sees her dad on a screen say, it would have been easier if my daughter died too. She says like, I can't, like, Nora basically articulates for her and she says yes. But the idea that she says no to Nathan because she can't imagine why anybody would love her. Like, oh my God, that is like something I have absolutely felt before of like, why would you like me? Why would you want to be like that feeling? I thought that was like so powerful. And I was like, it came from probably the character I was like least expecting. I think it also works that like we've kind of like disliked her for so long that I actually think it fits this idea of like she's trying to testify against Horizon. She's going to be like the star witness. And so she is trying to like change. But this idea that she had told Nathan no because she couldn't imagine why someone like Nathan, who she loves so much, would love her back. Ultimately, she ends up like saying yes to that proposal. But I just thought that was like, I was not expecting that from the show in a way that like when it does the drama really well, I think it like is really, really good. I thought that was like an excellent story.
Ingrid's far and away my favorite character 3 seasons in. I think Allegra Edwards both does such a great job, but I think she served the best material in that like she can be, you know, a little OTT. Sometimes that's how she started as a character, and she still dips into that. Like when she still chooses to lie and withhold things from Nathan, the funny storyline where she tries to pretend to be Nora and purposely be disgusting. And it's so easily clockable. But then when she also gets like suckered in to having to do her like TaskRabbit stuff, but then she turns around by like absolutely blasting these misogynistic guys by threatening to F their dads if, you know, they keep talking to her. I think she just does such a great job of like being able to showcase all 3 dimensions of the character while like still making her funny and still making her a little ridiculous sometimes. And so I think they found a perfect balance for this character. And I mean, I guess we'll go to the other side of this like love square kite, whatever you want to call it, because like Nora and Nathan have reached that Jim and Pam apex, right? Like they will they, won't they, for 2 seasons. They finally got together right at the end of season 2. And Greg Daniels has been in this territory before, and he has dealt with the difficulties of, okay, what do we do with this couple now to create drama now that they are officially together? And I will say, obviously, it was, I think, better handled here than Jim and Pam. Now, granted, Jim and Pam, they had to handle over the course of like 5 or 6 seasons of television. Here it was just 1. I personally could have done without the like, oh man, Nora almost kissed new Nathan. Oh man, you know, drunken Ingrid was trying to hook up with Nathan. That was honestly my least favorite part of the season overall. But I think that they did an okay job, especially in those first few episodes of like, hey, they're getting to know each other, but they're not out of the OTP range. We're not completely going to break them up just because now that they see each other face to face for the first time, it's not working.
I thought it was reasonable too for them to have a little bit of strife because, as Nora puts it, have you ever gone from like a long distance relationship to being around each other all of the time? It is difficult, right? It is like a difficult thing they're going to have to go through. I agree, Mike. I'm not always here for like the relationship strife that is necessary just to insert drama into a series. But I didn't mind it that much just because it's it's a 30-minute show. We're never really dwelling on it for too long. But it is interesting to see them. I mean, they still have just as much chemistry as they did before. I really liked the running gag of Nathan being unable to figure out a nickname, like a pet name for Nora before he so obviously lands on Angel, which should have just come to him from the very, very beginning. And he can't even figure out a nickname for himself. I really loved that gag. I thought some of the stuff between them. It's always very sweet. Obviously, it's mostly where we're going to get the drama from this season is that pairing. But I don't know. I really liked seeing them out and about in the real world and kind of having a little bit of like a timer on their time together where they're not sure how much time they're going to have together because like his brain could explode at any minute, or we're going to need to re-upload him because it's, you know, not great to have him downloaded sort of thing. So I like the drama that came from that, but I'll agree that like at least we didn't have Boom Mike guy, you know, we didn't have to have Boom Mike guy going on.
Well, that's the thing though. Last season we sort of went through that with Mateo, which I am so glad he's dead and he's gone. Cause he like, God, I thought it was like fine last season as just a necessary, not even evil. Like, okay, here's the character that they put in to serve as like the obstacle between these two characters.
He's Karen.
But what they did with him, man, like they quite literally assassinated the character.
They must have known, right?
He is so whimpering and negative in the one and only episode he's in this season.
Yeah, they must have known. They must have seen the feedback and just totally played into it, right? Like I think that like he when he's like, oh, we could be boyfriend girlfriend. Like no, we're not. You're like dying on the thing. I think interestingly the Lud stuff didn't really super bother me as much. And Jess, I feel like this is like kind of the it's a really good example of like why we're doing a show called Full Spoiler Recaps, which is not just that you and I want to watch a bunch of TV. That is true. But also there are, I think, particular shows that we were, Upload was a show where it had a pretty successful season 1 and you two decided to watch like each episode and you're watching them individually. And I think I can totally see where I have watched these shows that like drop in a binge and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, that piece like there, like that 10-minute scene in the middle is like the worst thing I watched. But if I watched it in a binge and that I didn't really bother me. The Lud stuff was like completely fine. Like it, like not that I loved it, but I just feel like I kind of like even forgot about it. But like I'm like at the end of season 3 because I binged it all. So it's like it happened, but I don't feel like in a way when you only get like 30 minutes of a show and you were watching it in that way where then you like stop down to talk about it. Of course, I feel like of course it would linger in a way of like, oh, so that was like not good. And I bet if I watched it that way, it would have as well. But it felt mostly like nothing to me. I think called the Lud stuff more than it was like, actively bad. But it was interesting. You could definitely feel, I think that they like, and I love this, that they did this, that they like kind of steered into, I think, the reception that Mateo got in season 1 to be like, let's make him like a total douchebag when we come back for season 3. And he's just like not going to be likable. I kind of love it.
Yeah, let's kill him instantly. That's perfect.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Grace, that like because I watched season 3 in a binge, it also helped with a little bit of the clunkiness in terms of the storytelling for me. Because as someone who, like you said, Mike, we watched and covered season 2 of Upload. My brain is that of a goldfish. I don't remember anything ever. And so I was relying on the show to give me some sort of a, hey, don't you remember this is what happened? And they kind of sort of did. I definitely think it could have been a little bit better to really help with those people who are like, I need a little bit more of a breakdown on what exactly happened last season. But because of that, I felt like I was going into season 3 a little bit behind the ball. And it took me a while to actually figure out what was going on, to like truly understand the major storylines of like, okay, we have not only just one big bad, we have all these it's basically like capitalism is the big bad, which like, isn't it always? But all these big bads, right? And then Nathan is downloaded and then we have clone Nathan. And, there was a lot going on in this season that I felt like I was a little bit behind the ball on catching up to the storyline. But because I binged it all, by the time I was on like halfway through the season, I was like, oh, okay, I think I get it now. Whereas if we were watching them like, one episode at a time, I think I would have been a little bit more frustrated with the story.
Well, I think part of it as well is that the world building is just so much fun. It continues to be my favorite part of the show, which is not even from the micro perspective of like going inside Lakeview. It's interesting that they've built out the gray zone quite literally to be like from this kind of enigmatic anything goes area to like, okay, now there are actual job markets being set up there and might be operating there in the future. But even just the random tidbits that they'll drop in the real world, where this is supposed to take place in the 2030s. And so it's interesting to see things like the giant amorphous blob of pig cancer that is being farmed as an example, or like the eldritch horror that was the legless cow that had
it was
like
awful.
15 sections to it. I kind of loved it though. It was one of my favorite parts was like getting to explore, okay, this is what, hey, if GMOs could be adapted to like, mammalian living organisms, this is what it would look like. I always love the random name drops to corporate mergers like Niagara LaCroix as a fun example. The University of TikTok, where the doctor gets his degree from. And that really culminates in the ending for me, which was, for lack of a better term, so meta. So meta. I adored it.
Very funny. Yeah, we get the name change from Horizon to Beta, which is so good. Yeah, obviously spoofing on Meta, but then also we're gonna make your life better. Like it's so good. It's so funny.
And it's juxtaposed with the like raid on Horizon, which is it was really well done. The ending.
No Eyelids guy is my favorite for
horrifying,
very weird,
horrifying.
Yes.
He's like, why do I need
3.
eyelids? And he's like, I'm just sucking your life force.
Wait, he says that he's I'm winking at you. And then
Yeah.
when Ingrid tries to kill him, and he says, "Babe, no eyelids." Like he's dead. He's fully dead.
Yeah, and that's another, like, again, I feel like we sort of have veered away from the mythology of Lakeview, but that was one that there was like this prototypical beta version of it that had T-posing AI guy with terrible hair, and the no eyelids guy that is like the guardian of it. So I really enjoy, again, the devil is in the details, as is comedy. And so that's when this show, again, is at its funniest for me, is when it gets hyper specific with the world that we live in, and just how, mobile carts that deliver boba teas can be set up as bombs to blow up your star witness.
Yeah, Dr. Kapoor, rest in peace. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. I think that's why anytime we're spending time at Lakeview is usually when I'm happiest. I think I enjoyed most the comedic roots that this show kind of began. Its humble beginnings of the comedy, and just Lakeview as a place, especially. I know we gave him so much praise in season 2, Mike, but AI guy has just a tight grip on my heart.
Yeah.
I love him so much. I think he is so sweet and adorable. He's like, I want to wear jeans. I've never worn jeans before.
Yeah,
it's so
they
cute.
unionized for a hot second, right? They all basically went on strike because they need a vacation. I mean, Owen Daniels is a great Nepo baby, right?
He's just adorable when he spits a Polaroid out of his mouth after like taking a photo with his eyes. I just love him so much. I love him and Alicia's storyline of her being their teacher. I don't know. Something about him is so sweet. And especially him and Ingrid's friendship as it's grown over the past 2 seasons, and her kind of culminating in her inviting him to her wedding. And she says, no +1s or +2s or 3s.
Pretty good. Yeah, I like the AI class. I like when Alicia is teaching them all the ways in which okay can have different meanings.
I love that so much. And then like the punchline of one of them her responding a certain way after getting hit by a spitball, and one of them is, it's F. It's F,
yeah. I thought that was really funny. I really liked Alicia a lot as well. And you can kind of, I feel like nothing was more set up than obviously her and Luke being together. I think by the end of the season, at least they have a little kiss by the end. But I still like kind of felt, again, this is like, I felt like such an easy show. The other thing too, I think that it has a big advantage over a former like network comedy, Mike, is the fact that it is only like 7 to 10 episodes. So the idea of like being in a will they, won't they, we only just actually 25 episodes of this is basically one season of a network TV. This is like, there were some times where The Office was like 25 episodes, right? So imagine we got all of this content in one season. Like, no, we would like sit in the, so the stuff about like when you were talking about Nora and them being like together and sort of, I would agree that I didn't love as much the like the way that like Ingrid would be jealous of Nathan and Nathan's jealous of like all of that for me didn't work as well. I do think ultimately it serves pretty well, mostly for like Ingrid's character development. Like she kind of needs the reason to be jealous, even if she's with Nathan and it's kind of working. I kind of liked that. And then, I think to your point, Jess, I really liked Nora when she says like, you ever have this thing where like you love somebody, but then you like hate these little things that you've never had to deal with? Like I kind of liked that. And I think the advantage the show has, it doesn't need to sit in that for like 4 or 5 episodes, a full season. It only basically does it. One of the things I was really impressed by this season is sort of how quickly, like I was surprised by how quickly we were done with the like love triangle or love square. So they like move on pretty quickly. Sometimes I thought that the editing was a little bit strange. I think we start episode 7 where like Nathan's like he's building his room, like he's gonna re-download and re-upload, and I was like, when did I miss a huge character? And it was like, no, he's just like, I'm worried and I'm gonna re-upload. So sometimes the editing I thought was maybe needed a touch.
Well, that's the weird thing is that, in that episode, actually, the reason why they figure, okay, this might be your last day on Earth is because it's been a month, I think, since Nathan downloaded. So I guess a month passed between episodes 1 and 6. I'll admit, I'm not one to judge. Nathan proposing to Nora, how long have they known each other? How many months have passed in the entirety of these
Not
3
that
seasons
many.
of Upload? Listen, you do you. Love is love. If you feel it, you feel it. Clearly, he feels it, though we don't know which one of him is at the end of this. But still, that kind of took me by surprise. And I wonder if part of it was to bring in like the Ingrid proposal element.
Right, but that and her being frustrated that it wasn't going in that direction to me was also like, you've had a lot going on, people. Like, you haven't even had a moment to just be in the relationship like a normal couple. You know,
This
you're
might be
dealing
where
with like
they-
the possibility of his head exploding. You know,
This
like
might be
let's
where
calm
they have
down.
the idea for something in season 4 that revolves around them being married. Because I do feel like that feels like a great way to like where you end the show on like, you know, okay, now they're going to be married. Or like, I guess maybe again, I'm thinking about like old school sitcoms where like the Jim Pam proposal is like a huge deal at the time when it happens, which is not exactly how this stuff happens, I think, in TV anymore. We're like so away from like appointment viewing TV. But yeah, maybe it's like because they want to deal with like marriage themes in season 4, maybe, I guess, probably.
know.
Well, they're going to do it with one of the characters. That's what
True.
they're sort of doubling down on, is no matter what Nathan survives, they're going to get married to one of them.
True.
Yeah, so should we shift into talking some superlatives?
Let's
because
do it.
we have gosh, there's so many options here for best scene.
Woo.
And I feel like we've talked through a few of them. At least if we were talking like best CGI scene, you know, like the cow personally is something I never ever need to see again. They were like milking, what was it, cottage cheese?
Cottage cheese, yeah. You could do like Parmesan or like,
it was everything. Now, could you get pork Parmesan is the question.
Interesting.
Honestly, my family, this is so embarrassing, but because pork Parmesan really isn't a thing. Like, it's either like chicken parm or eggplant parm is like the norm for an Italian cuisine. But when we were kids, we wouldn't eat pork chops, and my mom made a dish called pork Parmesan where it was just chicken parm but used pork, and it was the only way we'd eat it. Slathered in sauce and cheese.
My brother would always say he hates lasagna. My mom would make pizza roll-ups, which were just lasagna.
Just lasagna.
Yeah, but you'd roll it up.
Yeah,
like,
they were smaller. They were like,
this is a deconstructed pizza roll-up.
Pizza roll-up.
one open-faced pizza roll-up.
I can go with my favorite thing. I do think it's like when Nora's trying to convince Ingrid to like, she's like, she doesn't want to do the Star Witness, and then they talk about the proposal. I think it's my favorite scene of the season. Is like the like surprisingly emotional Ingrid scene. Is like her being like, I don't think anybody, like, you know, I don't think Nathan. I'm not good enough for Nathan, so I didn't accept his proposal. Yeah, but
oh man, there's so many. I'm gonna go with. I don't know. I will go with the ruse. This is sort of like a cheating because it is. I'm doing a hack, if you will, because maybe it does involve Luke. But I did like Nathan meeting Nathan in episode 5 when they go into the gray zone to go rescue Luke, and like the off-brand Princess Leia slave outfit that Luke is in, to the ruse that, of course, they didn't throw each other under the bus. They actually did swap the other one out. And regular Nathan just like VR blipped out and left that stupid sleazy gangster guy behind. This was something that I was really looking forward to, that honestly I thought they would save until the season finale of, oh no, these two Nathans now actually are aware of each other. But I'm so glad they did it early, because as indistinguishable as they were from each other to that point, it was just really fun to have the two of them actually start to interact with each other, become co-conspirators and like sometimes friends at certain points, and competitors in a certain way. And so I was really happy we got that, not only in general, but at that point in the season.
Yeah, especially like they do have some distinguishing factors about like the two Nathans. Like the one goes to leave and he wants to bring his little fanny pack, and Nora's like, do you really need that? And he's like, no, I guess not. And then he grabs it on his way out anyway. I really liked that, how they tried to differentiate the two Nathans from one another. I'm gonna put my favorite scene as Ingrid pretending to be Nora.
That's
both in I kind of get like a two for one deal here, because both when she is trying to trick Nathan into believing she is Nora, but he like immediately knows, and he's straight up calling her Norma, and she doesn't notice. And also when she tells off her coworkers for their blatant sexism. I really loved that. I love them switching back and forth between like Nora and Ingrid saying the words, because it just felt like Ingrid finally understood Nora better at that moment as well. And I really love anytime Ingrid gets to tell off someone. So,
and also I think Andy Allo got to do a fun thing that we see much like in The Good Place, the infamous Janet's episode, right? Of like getting to play Ingrid playing Nora, which is very fun because again, obviously the way she's behaving is very much not like Nora. And so I always enjoy she did that last time as well, like playing the Tinsley younger puppy love crush on Nathan last season, and now she gets to do it this season as well. So we'll see what character uses and abuses Nora's avatar next season.
Yes. Next one I have is best character. Mike, I feel like you should start us off here because I think you said Ingrid is your favorite.
Yeah, it really is between like Ingrid and AI Guy, and I only wouldn't give it to AI Guy because like he feels almost too ancillary sometimes. Like the thing that pushes Ingrid over the line for me is that she gets a lot of like main character content. And honestly, another scene I had up there as one of my favorites is from the finale after she does accept the proposal and she goes to the elevator AI guy and invites him to the wedding. Like,
I love it.
If that isn't representative of who she has become as a person, where again, still selfish, but still becoming slowly disillusioned with the money being taken away from her as to like the life of luxury that she has been led and realizing that these avatars are actually people. I really enjoyed her, but still like getting to see her kind of hit rock bottom, not on the level of like, you know, being physically uncomfortable in the hug suit all day, but still the image of her being so scared in that sub first floor that she runs away and like disconnects, but she's on the floor in like the weirdest, like she was scared to death position is one of my favorite pieces of physical comedy of the season. So I think she's one of the characters they have written for the best. I'm not sure if they had this in mind at all at the start of season 1, but she to me, I think represents the perfect amount of like pathos while simultaneous dimensionality, but also simultaneously like, okay, she can still occasionally be a bad person.
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to give the most basic answer ever, but I think that there's a reason why the show decides to have 2 Nathan Browns on the show. Is I think Robbie Amell is really good as Nathan, and I feel like it's like a little bit of like the Chuck Rick, but I really questioned at the beginning of the show whether I would like root for him as the sort of like lead of the show. I love Nora too, but I'm just going to go with Nathan. I think I like Nathan the most. So yeah. What about you, Jess?
So I'm gonna go with what Mike said is like the easy answer and say AI guy. I just like again my favorite. I love comedies. I really love a sitcom, and the reason I fell in love with the show originally is obviously the creative premise, the world building are all very fantastic, but the comedy that comes from the AI guy at Lakeview is one of my favorite things about the show. And it did not disappoint this season. I especially loved the 3 AI guys in Alicia's class. I think they're so funny, both their physical comedy, but just like the sweetness. They're just so endearing. Anytime they speak, you just go,
when they put him in the real world.
Yo, that was such a great storyline.
He's perfect. I'm trying to turn down the temperature, like stop staring at the sun. It's like
and he gives his hat to a homeless man, and they're like, well, that was our only camera. And he just walks away. Like, he's so sweet and adorable. I just love him. Owen Daniels does such a great job at playing him.
Yeah.
So I have to choose him. And listen, if they want to give him a bigger storyline, if they want to make him like the Janet of this show, I am all for it.
What about Boris
Please
Netherlands?
do.
What about Boris Netherlands?
Yeah.
Boris. Yeah.
Well, because he has the facial hair, right? That was the one thing that would make him recognizable from the rest of them.
Yeah. So he's lovely. I love him so much. The next superlative I have on my list, because there are so many couples this season, so many couplings, I have the best on-screen couple. And that doesn't have to necessarily mean romantic pairing, because we do get like AI guy and Ingrid have some really fun scenes together. So I'm willing to mix it up here, although we do have a new pairing in Nathan's mom and Maurizio.
Yes. So if you don't remember, Mauricio was the guy that when Nathan was going to break up with Ingrid and they're like, okay, we need to put his consciousness somewhere else. They like shopped him through the IR stuff where they like filled his office with all these random places. Yeah, he not only shows up, but apparently is bunking with Nathan's mom in this like open plan hostel that they live in.
Seems awful.
Like, hey, You can call me dad if you want. He goes, I'm never gonna do this. Like, well, I'll call you
So
son.
awful, so awful. His mom being like, "You guys can do stuff. I won't be able to hear it. Make it stop." No. Grace, did you have a favorite on-screen coupling this season?
I like Luke and Alicia. I think is my favorite.
Yeah, I'm gonna co-sign that.
I just think, like, I know, like, I do like Owen Daniels as AI guy, but I also just I like this whole cast pretty much. I like Luke. I feel like some of the like people who are like also working at Horizon maybe get a little bit underserved. Like I think like Tinsley and Lucy and like so even Ivan, you said he was in the main cast, and I was shocked by that, Mike, because I feel like he's like,
Lucy technically is as well, but like I don't know. I know that you talked about like multiple big bads, and I know Lucy serves a purpose, but like I don't need to think they necessarily need to character rehab everybody, but like even Ivan, they were able to give some usefulness to. Lucy's only use is that like she is the worst, the absolute worst. She's both callous but also incompetent at the same time.
Yeah. But I love Luke, so I think that Luke I did kind of love that his storyline was actually just about how sad he was. It wasn't around. I thought that's kind of endearing in like a way that like so many like platonic I mean, I know it's such a bro friendship, but like I don't know, just the way he just genuinely loves him. But then he gets a storyline with and he's a guy that like multiple people go to. Like Nathan goes to him all the time for stuff, and then Alicia starts going to him, right? So I think I like Luke a lot.
Yeah, and I really liked the relationship that they built towards the end of the season. You know, the kiss, I'm not so sure about, just because I was really on the bandwagon of them being friends. You know, I wasn't necessarily happy with the Karina-Alicia relationship, purposely so, because it turns out, oh no, she's working with Horizon, so she's a bad person. But I love that, like, Alicia figured that out immediately, that was a pivotal part of the finale, that we weren't dealing with that sort of trope. And I'm really happy that Zainab Johnson got more to do in this show. And again, the normality, especially in the setting that this world exists in, of like, yeah, there's a queer relationship on the show with one of the main characters, and it's like not distinctly different from anything else. You know, yes, she is an undercover mole that is just an absolute Horizon lackey, but at the same time, it's cool for Alicia to just kind of like wind up in this relationship, but there's not a lot of attention drawn to it necessarily from the taboo angle.
Yeah, I really do love Luke and Alicia. I think, in my opinion, they've had better seasons together. Like, I've liked their content. I liked a little bit more of when they were a little bit more combative than they were this season. I think like it added a little bit of like spice that wasn't necessarily there this season. But I have to admit that by the end of this season, I was really pleased with Ingrid and Nathan, like clone Nathan. I felt like you could actually understand how they ever were a couple to begin with. Like they do have a lot of fun together. And I especially, I'm going to point it out in the scene that I called out earlier, when he knows that it's her playing Nora and he really is just messing with her. Like, oh, Ingrid hates seeing my toes. She says I have, what is it, hobbit feet.
Yep.
And you
plants
just
it right on the thing. It's so funny.
You can see the love that they have and how they made a great couple to start. And I really loved how when he leaves her a little note, like, kiss me to wake me up when you're
really
ready.
Nice.
Like, I thought that everything that was very sweet between them. And I really, really enjoyed them as a couple.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think these two were purposely brought in the beginning as like showing the vapid Ken and Barbie side of the socialite side of things, right? That they're both very vain, into each other, all about superficiality. But I think the show did a really nice job, whether it was Ingrid drunkenly telling real Nathan, like, it doesn't matter what you look like, I would still love you, to, like you said, down low Nathan approaching things, honestly, much more maturely than real Nathan did in season 2, where Ingrid has to admit all over again everything about the hug suit. You know, he does say like, okay, I'm glad you're upfront with me about that. And so it was really interesting to see. I mean, it's almost like an everything everywhere all at once type of thing, right? Of like, okay, could you fall in love with someone who's slightly different than you? Are you fated for your paths to entwine? And so I could definitely agree with you, Jess. I think that they ended up building out that dynamic really well, that the proposal felt meaningful and also understandable to me by the finale.
Can I give you my least favorite couple of the season? And I think the thing that I was just having a conversation about I loved the TV show Scrubs, and it is a comedy that I absolutely can't go back with. I think comedy has a really tough time. Like a lot of the stuff in the show probably will be dated in like, 15 years, right? So going back to it, I think the one that I think will be the most, it's not as bad as Odie, but it's like, I think it really stands out is like Nathan putting on weight is like the one that I'm like, especially
I hated that.
Robbie Amell also doesn't look like he looks.
Why did they
so
keep saying that? They keep talking about his body fat percentage
it would make
and how
sense
he's
if we
so much
saw
better
him
looking.
shirtless more, which we should because Robbie Amell's an attractive man. Also, I think Jesse, you and I talked about this, that Nathan's supposed to be 27. Robbie Amell is not 27. I'm sorry. Like, he looks
35.
youthful. I don't think he passes as 27.
No, it just didn't make sense to me that, like, and again, like, okay, because the storyline is, again, one of the things I really loved is when we have Nathan admitting that, like, he's like, oh, you really want someone who, like, doesn't have a future and has constant diarrhea. That's me. Like, right? Like, I have so much diarrhea. But it doesn't make sense to me why we're body shaming downloaded Nathan because A, he doesn't look any different. B, if he's having constant diarrhea, then I can't imagine he's really keeping on any of the weight that he does. He gain weight in the afterlife? I don't understand the storyline. I don't get it.
I just didn't like it.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I just really didn't like it. I feel
I'm so glad you pointed that out.
It won't age well at all of like this, like
it already doesn't, in my opinion. Like it already is like, why are we talking about his body fat percentage and why is he so obsessed with it? And there's literally, your body looks great. What are we talking about?
And that's the part that sucks too, is like, he just so it's very annoying. Yeah.
It was, I'm not a big fan of that either. But
when Luke was showing us, I was like, oh wow, that guy's also jacked. They're like,
everyone's good looking.
Well, I think in that one, like Afterlife, right? They just kind of take like a still photo of how you died, or you can probably fix it up. Though I think Luke said, right, that like he'd never hacked his body because it'd be too easy.
Right.
He's a plus. I didn't need to do anything. I didn't need to do anything to it.
I know, Jess, we normally have sometimes we do best death. I do think we haven't talked about Detective Sato at all, who just like gets killed in the first episode. I kind of like love that because I felt like that story wasn't going anywhere. And then also, I can't remember his name. Who's the other guy that died? Mateo.
Dr. Kapoor too died.
But by far it's got to be that Nora blasts a freaking hole through him using the upload machine. Like
that was great.
That was amazing. Between like the Black Mirror aspect of all of them trying to stop the Freon people from basically lemmings running off a cliff, right? That was the entire. And that was the other thing as well. I feel like we kind of rushed through the idea of, okay, Nora and Nathan are now returning everyone's like uploaded selves back to their families. Like, it didn't seem that explicit, and I feel like that honestly could have been a season in and of itself, and we just kind of stopped it halfway through.
One whole episode with the farm and how gross, the gross cow and the pig cancer, and there's like a whole episode there, and then it was like, and now we've given everyone's VHSs, I guess. I don't know.
This is where I think you could feel that it's like a 8 episode season where like if that's probably like a full 4 episode arc of like all of these wacky people, and they would like cast all these like you'd cameo it up of like people coming in to be like these people who they're giving their like their body or their like hard drives to. So
I also would say that, I mean, Grace, you watched season 2 more recently than I did. It kind of felt like an odd, unceremonious way to kill off this character that like was an interesting enigma in the back half of season 2 of him just like hunting around all these details around Nathan's death. And I remember, I believe, much like Nora and Nathan did, that we thought he was going to be a good guy. And then when it turns out, no, then we just sort of do away with him in the first episode after all that buildup.
Yeah, I kind of think this is one where like something maybe happened with like the ability to have him return or whatever, where like I feel like I definitely felt like in season 2, I'm with you that I thought he was going to be a good guy. So when he immediately is a bad guy in season 2, that felt like a rewrite, honestly, to me. And I don't know how true that is, but like we're going to like write him off in episode 1. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that was our season 3. We don't know about a season 4. We haven't heard about a renewal. It's still pretty early. I mean,
I don't know, Jess, have you heard? It's the #1 half-hour show.
Apparently.
Okay, the actual when I was watching, went to put it on Amazon Prime. It does say like Amazon Prime's #1 comedy show, so that's how they want to bill it. So,
it is really, I will say it is at the top, even though I've seen it before, obviously, but it was at the top of my Amazon Prime in terms of like what they wanted me to click for advertising. So I don't know. I'm hopeful that we'll get a season 4. I really hope they I really think they have to wrap it up with season 4. I don't know how much longer they can go on with this premise without it feeling like we're kind of going on a never-ending tale here. Especially with, we have Ingrid and old Nathan and Nora and new Nathan. Now we'll back down to one Nathan. So we'll have to see what happens there.
Okay, let's throw out a quick guess right now. Let's do our own theory mongering. I mean, it's tough because they purposely left it vague so they can go with whatever they want. But do we have a read as to which Nathan is the Nathan talking in that last scene?
I think that as much as I want it to be original Nathan, I feel like the more fun writing yourself into a corner is backup Nathan, because then Nora having, although I don't necessarily want to break up this Nathan and Ingrid.
I think it has to be downloaded Nathan, so like original flavor Nathan, because I don't think they want to wipe away all of the work they did with Nora and Nathan's relationship, because that would basically all go goodbye.
I don't know. I feel like if I'm Horizon, you get rid of down low Nathan. Isn't the more dangerous Nathan the one that can just run around and has been evading your presences at every turn? No, if the down low Nathan is, or the up low Nathan, I should say, the clone Nathan is trapped basically, and maybe he can find a way to escape. But I feel like that's much more of a manageable place to look over and surveil him than the entirety of the world as we know it.
I do think, though, I think it's so we just talked to a few weeks ago, we talked to Abe Forsyth, who made Wolf Like Me, and he talks about the thing that he admired most of his favorite show, which is Breaking Bad, is how they would just write themselves into corners and try to figure out how to get them out. I would admire the show way more if they, even if original Nathan comes back at some point in the season. Like, I think that that's entirely on the table, that we're back with two Nathans at some point, but to, at the start of the season, be rid of original Nathan, with the idea of either like, now there's some tension with like backup Nathan being the only Nathan, but also can we figure out how to like get him back in some way. And I know we kind of done that already, but yeah.
And now that there's this fun sort of reverse now, where could Nora be sort of in the Ingrid spot of like, I want what they have, I had what they have, I want to get it back. And like, now we go back to this moment that, again, maybe I didn't like in retrospect of, okay, you know, she did nearly kiss new Nathan. Is that something that they'll try to rekindle? I feel like, to your point, Grace, the more story viable option would be that, as opposed to like, if new Nathan died, I don't know what you do with Ingrid. Do you just reset her back to like, oh no, well now she's jealous and wants Nathan back again, because now she doesn't have her own Nathan? That feels rote to me.
So is this show also absolutely not ending with like everyone in Lakeview? Like, right? Like, is that like not like, and like, but like a free Lakeview? Like, not,
I was
maybe
just
not
gonna say,
Lakeview,
I don't think it's
like
Lakeview proper, but I think,
there's a line this season where Nora says like, this is what virtual life should be. It should be like Central Park, and you come and go as you please. And isn't the ending like gotta be like, well, they're all dead, but like they can live together in eternity and like
and die alone,
free, the most free afterlife?
Yes, but at the same point in time, the whole reason that all of the baddies were getting together to stop Freon from being a thing is that, like, with Nathan being able to download, it ruins everything for them. They're not able to make money because people are able to download into new bodies, right? They don't need to have an afterlife because they could just re-download themselves into human beings again.
And not only that, they purposely wanted to basically not do voter fraud, but just wipe people off of the map so they can turn things in their favor, so that they could get this resolution passed, so that they can get uploads to work for them, so that they can reduce, increase profit and reduce the bottom line. That's the line of logic I followed. I thought initially, I agree from a political perspective, it's like, oh, they want to steal the election. No, it really does seem like they just want cheap labor. Yeah. And so that's why they went through this hop, skip, and a jump. I do think this show will have a happy ending whenever it does end, because that's the tone that it takes on. That being said, the ending of season 3 was very much the Empire Strikes Back ending, in my opinion. Getting, from what I thought was a very well edited sequence of the beta commercial with new Nathan getting hunted down. But I think it's very much doing, oh no, all of our characters are in chaos. Lakeview's getting destroyed. Upload rights are at an all-time low. And so I think this is sort of the darkest before the dawn, whenever that dawn's going to come.
I would agree.
Yeah. Well, we do still have a not a theme song, more of a title sequence to rank, Grace. This one, obviously, we've talked through. Currently, our rankings are The Continental, From the World of John Wick, then The Fall of House of Usher, then Wolf Like Me. This is very much in the fall of the House of Usher. It's just a upload, and the background of the letters is like the scene, and it's like do 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 do. It's like a but there's not much going on.
What I noticed for the first time, and I don't know if this happened in season 2, but the letters are cutouts, and usually within the letters you can see like the scene that's either just played out or is playing out. I don't think I noticed that before with the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's not much. I do think the song is good, so I like give a lot of credit to like the score of the thing, but I'm like also giving the title card. So I think I rate it like kind of like probably below Bodies, but above Wolf Like Me, just which is exactly where I have All the Light We Cannot See also, which we did last week as well. But yeah, I'll include that. I'll upload that in ours. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Grace. Like that's where I would put it as well. Just because it's not bad, but it's not like doing a ton either.
Yeah, it's fine. It's but fine. I like the music. I think it's like catchy. I know it's the upload music, Yeah.
I will say what rocks this show though, the needle drops in the closing credits, they are so good. Whoever does music supervision has some like awesome music taste with these sort of like folksy plaintive tracks to close out sometimes some very intense episodes.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. So, Grace, let's talk about what we're doing next. What's next week?
I'm very excited. We're going to head back over to Netflix and we're going to watch Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. I'm very excited. The animated show, I think it's 8 episodes. It's basically, I think from what I've seen, a shot-for-shot remake of the movie, but as an animated TV show. So very interesting. We'll be checking that out. Yeah. Have you watched Scott Pilgrim versus the World, Jess?
I know nothing about it.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome.
Less than nothing about it.
That's a great perspective to have. I think you need that person coming in who like doesn't know anything about it, because to your point, it literally just seems to be like the movie in animated form, shot for shot. And if it's just 2 people that have watched it already, there's not really a lot of value in that.
It's set in Toronto, so I can say that thing is from Toronto. That thing's from Toronto. That thing's from Toronto.
Incredible. Yeah. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us this week. What else do you have going on? Where can people find you?
Well, you can find me in Lakeview at a Mike Bloom type. It'll say it on the door. No, I can't afford Lake. I'd be in with the 2 gigs. Let's be completely honest. I'd be eating the apple and then freezing up when I try to ask Luke out on a date. So from a PSR perspective, so Josh and I are, of course, covering Battlestar Galactica. Speaking of very twisty sci-fi shows, but I am engaging in coverage of a new show that is coming in just a couple of weeks. Fargo is coming back for season 5. Yes, that show is still on. Yes, it's coming back in true anthology fashion with a new cast and a new group of podcasters as well. I'll be joined by someone on this very call. Grace Leeder will be on it as well.
Fargo, don't you know?
Yeah, there we go. I'm so excited for Grace to just do the entirety of the podcast in that impression. So it's going to be us and fellow Midwesterner LaTanya Starks as well to also provide that perspective. So that's coming out, I believe, November 22nd, I think.
Yeah.
But we'll have a little teaser up at some point in the next week just to remind you all of what it is before we'll be kicking off our coverage around Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving. Other than that, I have been slowly pulling my head out of, the surface of the waters that I have been in these past few months, the reality TV waters. That is, speaking of, surveilling people and watching characters, interact with each other in good and bad ways. I recently covered the finale of Big Brother, did a lot of post-finale press with that, covering Survivor and The Amazing Race, both of which are in their back halves as well. I write about it, podcast about it as well. And I'm also on Cameo. If you want to check me out, have me talk about my percentage body fat. I'm not entirely sure. I'll do anything and everything for money. That's incredibly clear. I'll drag around Nathan's garbage bag full of food he was picking up on the side of the highway for money, if that's what it takes. But that's at a Mike Bloom type as well.
Incredible. Grace, What are you doing?
We should have one more episode of our Flag Means Death coverage. And actually, we're going to be interviewing Gypsy Taylor, who was the costume designer for that show. So I'm very excited about that. We're wrapping up Tales from the Loop. Aaron and I wrapped up the morning show, wrapping up Rome. So lots of stuff that's wrapping up. But Dr. Amanda and I are covering The Curse, the new Nathan Fielder, Emma Stone, Betty Softy show. The first episode is wild, so check it out. Rich and I are talking about Yellowstone, Aaron and I are talking about movies each week, and Shannon, Gus, and I will be talking about The Crown. The first 4 episodes of the final season premieres this week, so we'll be chatting about that. So lots going on. I'm on social media at Hi From Grace.
You can find me at the Jess Sterling. I don't have a ton going on. Billions wrapped up. I took vacation and I'm back, and now I'm just like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do something. So you can
just
also...
in time for the strikes to end and for Scripted TV to actually come back.
Very exciting. Yes, and you can also hear my voice over on Shit 90 Shows Taught Me, where Sarah and I finished Dawson's Creek. We are finishing up Freaks and Geeks, which has just been so fun to watch and revisit. And we are starting our journey with Felicity very shortly. So I'm really excited to give that show a watch. I mean, the entire premise blows my mind that like a girl, it just like drops everything and goes to a college because she has a high school crush on someone. My mind can't compute that. But we'll get into all of it over there. You can follow me at the Jess Sterling. And of course, if you want to subscribe to the podcast, postshowrecaps.com/full-spoiler-recaps is where you can find us. If you want to support the podcast, you could do so at patreon.com/postshow-recaps, where you can become a patron and join our little patron family over in our Discord. We have tons and tons of fun over there. I think that is about everything. So we will be talking Scott Pilgrim Takes Off next week on Netflix. If you want to give that a listen. And until then, everybody, have a good one. Bye.
You've been fully spoiled.
Oh my God, I totally forgot. No, wait, I didn't stop it yet. Okay, wait. You've been fully spoiled.
No, you say you've been fully spoiled.
That's right.
You've been fully spoiled. Yeah.
Listen, I was on vacation.
That's
I
great.
can't be blamed for this. Okay, all right. You've been fully spoiled.
And you